Did you know that there was a time when audiences eagerly paid to witness the extraordinary? Although the controversial nature of human diversity sparks rightful criticism today, in the past, it was a different story. During that bygone era, circus shows exhibited people with rare physical characteristics. While some gained fame and even fortune, many were displayed as curiosities, their lives treated as entertainment. Join us for today's video as we uncover the stories of 15 remarkable individuals who were once part of the strange world of historic circus sideshows. Number 15. Michael Buddy Sugru. Michael Sugru became a household name in the 1950s, Britain for his jaw-dropping strength, especially in his jaw. At the London Palladium in 1959, Buddy famously lifted singer Bridie Gallagher, who was still seated in a wooden chair, using only his teeth. That stunt made him a pub legend overnight. And we mean, why not? But he didn't stop just there. In another wild performance, he pulled an entire double-decker bus using just a rope clenched in his mouth. And in yet another, he balanced a full-grown man seated in a chair atop his own head, held steady by nothing but his neck muscles. These weren't party tricks. They were full-on feats of raw, unfiltered strength that earned him appearances across beer halls and county fairs. Despite the risks, Buddy performed with quiet composure, never showing fear. His name soon became shorthand for unbelievable power. He wasn't just another strongman. He was living proof of what sheer grit, willpower, and jaw strength could accomplish. Buddy was the real deal. Number 14. The Stone Eaters. Swallowing stones sounds like a death sentence, but for centuries, performers turned it into a twisted kind of art. From a Prague man in 1006 to 17th century fairground legends, the Stone Eater was a recurring act. Thomas Gobsill, for instance, started swallowing pebbles to fix his digestion. It worked, until it didn't. He ended up with over 200 rocks inside him and could hear them rattle when he walked. Francesco Battaglia became the act's poster child, reportedly raised on stones after refusing milk as a baby. He'd swallow spoonfuls daily, then wash it all down with beer and tobacco. Once every 3 weeks, he'd pass sand. Others followed. One performer in 1788 even offered to eat audience members' stones for 2 shillings. Of course, most didn't digest a thing. It was sleight of throat. Houdini later learned the trick: swallow, then regurgitate on command. The act survives today through modern performers like Stevie Starr, who swallows everything from rings to Rubik's cubes, then brings them back up, spotless. Number 13. The she-bear of the Coney Island sideshow. Alice Bounds, from India, had joints so drastically misplaced that her elbows sat where her wrists should have been, and her knees took the place of her ankles. This rare skeletal alignment allowed her to move naturally on all fours. In 1880, that unique gait led her to Dreamland Circus Sideshow at Coney Island, where she performed under the names The She-Bear and Ursa the Bear Girl. To amplify the illusion, she wore a full fur costume that made her appear even more animal-like under the tent lights. Her stage persona thrived on this bear-like image, and it helped blur the lines between human and beast in the eyes of amazed spectators. Bounds continued performing into the early 20th century, captivating audiences with a presence that was equal parts eerie and fascinating. Her act didn't rely on tricks or stunts. It was her body itself that told the story. She wasn't playing a role. She was simply moving through the world her way. Number 12. Armless Wonder. John Valerius entered the world in 1667 in Upper Palatinate, Germany, completely without arms, not even partial limbs. His shoulders were smooth, except for a single thumb protruding from the right one. Alongside that anomaly, he also had a single feminine breast on his chest. Despite these physical differences, Valerius didn't shrink from the spotlight. He didn't let that stop him. He taught himself to use his legs and toes with astounding finesse, mastering everything from grooming to riding to fencing. After losing his parents at a young age, he traveled across Europe, performing in cities until he eventually settled in London, performing there from 1698 to 1705. Audiences were stunned by his control. He wrote in multiple languages, played games, and could drink while balancing glasses on his head. He even learned to fire a musket using only his feet. After each show, he'd sell portraits with samples of his toe-written script on the back. Valerius wasn't just a performer. He was a display of fierce capability against all odds. Number 11. The Human Aquarium. Long before reality TV acts made regurgitation mainstream, French performer Mac Norton was doing it live, in the flesh, on 19th century stages. Nicknamed the Human Aquarium, Norton's signature trick involved swallowing live frogs and then bringing them back up, unharmed. To prep, he'd drink water so the amphibians had somewhere to swim inside his stomach. Crowds watched in disbelief, unsure if they should be amused or horrified. In 1895, Houdini witnessed the act firsthand and later learned the trick himself, starting with small potatoes and working up to larger objects. Norton was part showman, part anatomical marvel, and he wasn't alone. The art of regurgitation lived on through acts like the Great Waldo and continues with modern performers like Stevie Starr. But Norton's performances set the tone. Unexplainable, visceral, and slightly terrifying. It wasn't just a stunt. It was an act of control most people couldn't even fathom. He turned the human body into a stage, and every performance dared the impossible. Number 10. Dagabar Roman. Dagobert Roman, famously known as the Great Waldo, possessed a gift both bizarre and fascinating. He could swallow nearly anything and bring it back up at will. Always dressed to the nines, he stood before stunned crowds and casually swallowed white rats, only to regurgitate them minutes later, alive and well. He didn't stop there. Coins, rings, lemons, goldfish, frogs, even metal watches disappeared into his stomach, then resurfaced like magic. He once invited someone on stage to press their ear to his gut, just to hear a swallowed watch ticking. The real shock? He could swallow multiple colored balls and selectively bring up whichever one the audience called for. Waldo had admired sideshows since boyhood, particularly regurgitators, and eventually developed his own stomach control to master the skill. One day I thought, "Why not swallow a rat?" he once said. And so he did. His odd gift made indigestion a thing of the past. Today, performers like Stevie Starr continue the act, but Waldo set the standard. Number 9. Artoria Gibbons. Artoria stood out as one of the most elaborately tattooed women of the early 20th century. Starting in the 1920s, she methodically transformed nearly her entire body into a living canvas. Her ink told stories, not of rebellion, but of faith and patriotism. Her body bore religious scenes, American flags, Bible verses, angels, and historic portraits. She performed for major circuses like Ringling Brothers and Barnum and Bailey, often posing motionless while crowds examined her vividly illustrated skin. Her presence alone defied social expectations for women at the time. She wasn't just performing. She was making a bold statement about identity, conviction, and ownership of her body. Her look shocked early audiences, but she remained composed, confident, and deeply proud of what she represented. While others inked themselves for shock value, Artoria's tattoos served as a visual declaration of her beliefs. In a world that demanded conformity from women, she chose to become both spectacle and symbol, and she wore it well. Number 8. The Wing Walker. Gladys Roy had 3 brothers flying planes for Northwest Airlines, but she made her mark not by piloting, by dancing on wings. This fearless Minnesota daredevil became a star of barnstorming shows. wing walking at high altitudes, leaping from aircraft between 100 and 16,000 feet, and even performing mid-air Charleston dances. Her most legendary stunt? A staged tennis match with Ivan Unger on the wings of a flying biplane, rackets in hand, just no ball. At her peak, Roy earned between $200 and $500 per performance, the equivalent of $2,600 to $6,700 today. But by May 1926, she was barely making $100. "Even my hardest stunts can't hold their attention," she told the Los Angeles Times. "Eventually, an accident will happen, and then..." It did, but not in the air. While posing for a promotional photo, Roy accidentally walked into the propeller of a running aircraft. She was killed instantly. She was only 25. Number 7. Katie Sanduina. In the early 1900s circus scene, Katie wasn't just strong, she was unrivaled. Born in Austria, she began performing with her family's traveling strongman troupe as a child and quickly outshone every one of them. By her 20s, she was bending steel and lifting full-grown men with casual ease. One of her most unforgettable feats? Raising her husband clean over her head as if he were made of air. Sanduina became an American sensation, headlining with Barnum and Bailey and consistently stealing the spotlight. Her towering frame and sculpted strength captivated audiences, but it was her warmth and charisma that made her beloved. At a time when female strength was considered a novelty, Katie didn't just break stereotypes, she crushed them. Number 6. The 7 Sutherland Sisters. Their act looked tame, but it left audiences speechless. Born in New York, the Sutherland Sisters, Sarah, Victoria, Isabella, Grace, Naomi, Mary, and Dora, were all talented vocalists. In the 1880s, urged by their father, they abandoned his struggling turkey farm and took to the stage. Though they started as a singing group, it was the grand finale that made them icons. Each sister slowly let down her hair, revealing 7-foot-long shimmering locks. The moment froze crowds. Women were stunned, men mesmerized. Capitalizing on the craze, their father launched Sutherland Sisters Hair Fertilizer, earning $90,000 in its first year alone. The family retired in luxury, just in time for the bob haircut trend to take over. But money didn't shield them from chaos. In time, the sisters were swept up in financial disasters, substance issues, whispered rumors of witchcraft, and bizarre romantic scandals. They started with music, became beauty moguls, and finally faded into infamy. What began with harmony ended in hushed confusion. Number 5. Kraonni. Kraonni, marketed as the so-called missing link, was brought to the Western world from Laos in 1885 by the promoter William Leonard Hunt, also known as the Great Kraonni. Born with hypertrichosis, Krau's entire body was coated in soft, fine hair, an appearance that led showmen to promote her as half human, half primate. Posters claimed she was discovered in a remote jungle, worshipped by local tribes, and could only speak in guttural sounds, all total fiction designed to sell tickets. In reality, Krau was intelligent, well-mannered, and spoke multiple languages. She became a regular act in P.T. Barnum's Circus, performing in ornate dresses and calmly engaging curious audiences. Despite being framed as a scientific marvel, she lived a surprisingly stable and long life for someone in her profession. Krau continued touring into adulthood and maintained control over her image better than most. She died in 1926, having spent her life not as a missing link, but as a misunderstood human, wrapped in spectacle. Number 4. The Martian Ambassadors. George and Willie Muse were born in Virginia in the late 1800s. African American and albino, they became a target for sideshow scouts due to their striking pale appearance. In 1899, they were abducted and sold into circus life, rebranded with names like Echo and Echo or the Martian Ambassadors. The brothers were paraded across the US and Europe as extraterrestrial oddities, their look heavily stylized for maximum spectacle. But they weren't just about appearance. They were gifted musicians, performing live with genuine skill. For years, they were exploited until their mother, Harriet Muse, discovered their whereabouts and fought a legal battle to reclaim them. The story hit national headlines. Their return home wasn't just a reunion. It was a rare victory in a world where performers like them were often silenced. Though their path began in captivity, George and Willie carved out their legacy with talent and quiet strength. Number 3. Mirin Dejo. Mirin Dejo shocked post-war Europe with body-piercing feats that seemed to defy biology. Born Arnold Gerrit Henskes in the Netherlands, he gained fame in the 1940s for standing completely still as swords were driven through his torso, without pain, bleeding, or visible damage. One of his most famous acts involved calmly breathing while a fencing sword entered one side of his chest and exited the other. Medical professionals took notice. Dejo underwent testing in hospitals where X-rays verified that real blades had passed through living tissue. He attributed his resilience to spiritual energy, while skeptics speculated about nerve anomalies or extreme mental control. In 1948, he took his experiments too far, swallowing a steel needle to prove internal invulnerability. The needle punctured internal organs, and he died days later. Though his life ended in tragedy, Mirin remains one of the most amazing performers in sideshow history. Number 2. The Hilton Sisters. Daisy and Violet Hilton weren't the only conjoined twins to grace the sideshow circuit, but none achieved their level of stardom. Born in 1908 to a single mother in Britain, they were taken in by Mary Hilton, the midwife who delivered them. Mary raised them as performers, teaching them music and dance, and introduced them to show life by the age of 3. For over 20 years, she controlled their earnings. Eventually, the twins fought back in court and won their freedom. The payoff was massive. They became top-billed vaudeville acts, earning $5,000 per week. Their fame extended to film as well. They starred in the 1932 cult classic Freaks, and later in Chained for Life, 1952, a courtroom drama featuring the sisters at the center of a fictional murder case. When fame faded, they turned to burlesque. By the 1960s, they worked quietly at a grocery store in Charlotte. Their story was later retold in Bound by Flesh, 2012, where exploitation met resilience. Number 1. The Esau Woman. Annie Jones may have been known for her beard, but it was her cleverness, poise, and musical talent that truly set her apart. Born with facial hair, she caught the attention of P.T. Barnum as an infant. He paid her parents $150 per week, a fortune in the 1860s, to exhibit her as the Esau infant, a nod to the famously hairy biblical figure. She became a major attraction almost instantly, but the fame came with risks. On one occasion, a phrenologist kidnapped her while her mother stepped away briefly, likely hoping to study the unusual structure of her skull. Fortunately, Annie recovered safely. As she matured, her stage persona evolved from Esau infant to Esau child, and finally, Esau woman. Her mother never left her side again. Annie's performances remained popular well into adulthood, and audiences adored her confidence and grace. In an industry built on exploitation, Annie Jones kept control of her narrative and never let the world define her. If you've enjoyed this video, well, like it, share it, and subscribe for more awesome content like this. Thanks for tuning in with us. We'll catch you soon in the next one.